this is part one of the final. So after reading chapters 12 and 13, the statement I chose is on page 199. And it's almost every minute a teacher makes a decision about what to teach, how to teach, whom to call on, how fast the lesson should move, and how to respond to a child, and so on. So, what this statement means to me is that as teachers, we are in charge of how our lessons go, how we run our class, what we want to teach, how we teach it. And I like this course has really influenced the how I want to teach math to my students. By the end of this course, I believe I'm able to now create more effective math lessons. And by effective, I mean that lessons that will actually help my entire class, focusing on teaching problem solving, allowing students to expand and think outside the box, and allowing students to communicate with each other as well as explaining their own strategies. So this is very important to me because I don't have any background in teachers who let me solve a math problem however I wanted to, or just let me do my own thing. I've always came from teachers who taught me a certain specific way of solving a problem and expected me to learn it that way, and if I didn't, well, so what, you know? And while now after this course, I'm against that, you know, like I am totally up for my students to solve the problem how they want, to explain how they solve the problem, and even if it's wrong, I would love for them to just talk about it with each other and just share share their ideas. So after reading the chapters, there was a lot of great quotes from teachers, but one in specific that I felt I connected with the most and just influenced more of the teaching and learning I've done is the one on page 191, 192 by Teresa Lind. And she was a math coach, so makes a lot of sense on what she said, you know. So she mentioned how years ago, her school was identified among the 5% with the lowest scores. And she mentions how they needed to change this. And one of the things that they did in order to change this was start teaching with CGI and start assessing with CGI. Throughout her quote, she mentions a lot of great things, a lot of great ideas that the students did, and a lot of like reasons why her school was among the lowest. And one of the things that she mentioned was poverty and how significant of an impact in their school it made. And I really connected with what she said, just because as a public school teacher, you are gonna be with students who come from poverty, who come from, you know, not the best background. And this influences a lot in the way that they learn and in the way that they are in school, of course. And this is something that I really connected with in the way that she mentioned it. But the main reason why I liked what she said is because she mentioned that all students are able to learn and deserve the opportunity to develop the ability to think critically and able to express mathematical ideas. And I just really loved that she said that, because it's true. As teachers, we need to be open-minded and allow our students to communicate with each other and allow them to be critical thinkers and allow them to question even the way we solve the problem, the way we're like showing them how we solve the problem. Like, we should be able to take criticism the same way that we would talk to them and tell them like, oh, your problem's not right. And yeah, and she just said a lot of great things, and this is why I chose her quote. How your thinking has changed since the beginning of the semester. So from the beginning of the semester, I feel like I was more about like, well, math is not my favorite subject, and I'm not the best person at math, so that's probably why I wouldn't want to teach higher grade levels. But now I feel like it doesn't matter if I'm not good at math, you know, like, or if my experience with math hasn't been the best. As a teacher, I'm always going to be learning, and I'm always going to be, you know, growing, and I have to provide my students with the better learning experience in mathematics. Just because I didn't have one, I want them to have it, you know, like I want to give them the opportunity to problem solve, allow my students to communicate with each other, to analyze and compare their alternative answers, to help I want to help all the students the best I can without like being too concerned about staying behind because not all my students are there yet, you know. So yeah, I feel like at the beginning of the semester I was more like teaching towards the book, a little bit more scared of teaching the upper grade levels, and now I just really don't care. Put me in a 6th grade classroom, put me in a 5th grade classroom, even though that math is hard, you know, we'll achieve it, we'll make it, we could make it happen. And just because once it gets to the harder math is when students start losing interest in mathematics, and I feel like that's when the teacher should step in and be like, no, you know, like there's sunshine at the end, you know. And so for part 3 of the goal that I would set for my own learning is just to practice more problem solving lessons, try to challenge my students more, especially those who understand the math concepts. I feel like I don't really have never really practiced like what I would do to challenge my students. And after doing my math lesson for your class, I feel like it really came to my head. I was like, what would I do for the students like I have in my mentor teachers class that are like so bright and they understand everything and they're always moving on and they just get everything and they're always yelling out the answers and stuff. Like, what would I do to challenge her, you know? So I feel like I want to practice more with that. I also want to experience more of teaching math. I want to be able to teach math more, practice it more. I want to work on being able to effectively teach my students a math lesson and not feel pressured to move on because my 2 students understand it and the rest don't, and they're bored now, you know. I want to practice that. I want to practice with more materials, with more tricks, with more teaching ideas. I want to be able to like just learn all the new things that are coming out because they're always coming up with new ideas and new ways to help students. And I feel like when you're an older teacher, you just don't really care, you know, like you just go with the book, and you know you're so stuck to your routine that you just don't care. And one of the ways that I would want to achieve my goal is by looking up ways to help my students, by reading articles. And I feel like this class really influenced me with articles because the articles you made us read and had like that group project with were very effective and helpful, and like every article actually has something that was important to us as teachers. And I feel like the older you get, you don't really care, but they're there for a reason, you know. I feel like the articles are coming out with new ways of teaching, and you know, just like reading more articles is gonna help me. And it's actually, I find it kind of fun because it's just new information and it's just like gonna help my students. So why wouldn't I want to help my students and help myself too, because it's just gonna make my life easier. You know, just to find new ways to update and teach math. And overall, I feel like this class has really changed my perspective within teaching mathematics. I'm excited to make math fun for my students and help my students reach their full potential within their mathematical education. So yeah.